Posting from my main account because I don't care. I need to get this off my chest to at least somebody. In 2021, I began seeing a girl we will call Stacy. Everything was fine in our relationship, almost too good, until an ex I had a bad breakup with because I was an alcoholic at the time got involved and told her things I allegedly did to her. Stacy and I talked it out, and everything seemed fine. Fast forward to the next week, we just finished having a physical altercation, and it devolved into us just slapping each other on the legs. What I didn't know at the time is that Ehlers-Danlos, SP, would cause her to have a severe reaction days later in the form of bruises. Stacy told a few people, including my ex, that I did that to her, even though it was entirely consensual and no harm was intended. I even have a screenshot of her saying, "It's okay, babe, we were just play fighting," after she sent me photos of her legs and insisted, "I like olaying fighting with you." Obviously, her spelling mistake was meant to say play. Fast forward a few more weeks, she decides to go to bed early, but says, "Wake me up with your private part if you feel like it." So, after a few hours and a hell yeah brother had passed, and I was ready to sleep, I did exactly that. She was into it, I was into it. Once done, we fell back asleep. She commented that it was exactly how she wanted to be woken up. She had sent me several texts in the past too, saying similar things. Thank goodness I saved them all. Now, a few more weeks later, I pick her up from work, and she straight up asked me if she could be intimate with her same-sex friend. I was appalled and disgusted and felt like our relationship meant nothing to her anymore. This is where our relationship became toxic, and she turned me into an angry, jealous person, and for some reason, wondered why I didn't like her friend very much. Now for the crucial part. In early 2022, we were on and off again every other week, and the thought of her with someone else drove me crazy. I went off my medications, gabapentin, clonazepam, Latuda, mirtazapine, Vivance, and spent days wide awake, got fired from my job, and was at my wit's end. I then tried to end my own life after Stacy said in a text that she was going to spend the night with someone else while I was in the middle of an emotional meltdown, that someone else was her ex. I woke up in the hospital the next day, hooked up to several machines, and one hell of a sore throat from getting my stomach pumped. I spent a few days in the hospital while I'm sure she was having a great time with her ex. We tried talking it out over the next few weeks, but one morning, I caught Stacy red-handed talking to my ex about me. I immediately asked her what she was talking about and to show me. She said no, and I told her to leave. She initially refused until I threatened to start tossing her property off my one-story deck. She didn't take me seriously until I grabbed her bag and tossed it into the snowbank below. I then grabbed several items, including a coffee cup, clothing, and anything else that was hers, including, unfortunately, food. I was completely manic at the time and didn't have a single brain cell left. One of the items I tossed down was a container of yogurt, which didn't directly hit her. However, the flimsy plastic container immediately busted open on impact like a baby yogurt bomb, and she got some on her jacket, allegedly. Fast forward a few days later, and Stacy is still sending me mixed signals about our relationship and really playing with my emotions. Stacy then filed a restraining order against me without notice. She continued the conversation with me 5 days after she got the order. It was Valentine's Day, so I gave her the ultimatum finally, be with me, or I'll be with someone else tonight. She called me briefly, and she asked what I meant, and I said exactly what I said. She told me to work on myself more and maybe. I wasn't having any of that, so I went out with the girl I had matched with on Tinder earlier that day to begin the process of moving on. 2 days later, I hear a knock at my door. I had 8 officers knock on my door and place me under arrest for assault causing bodily harm, the leg photos, harassment, calling and texting repeatedly, violating the restraining order that was in place that I had no idea existed. I was brought to the police station first. I tried explaining my side of the story and even offered evidence in the form of the texts about the assault and gave full detail, but the police officer told me to shut up, woman beater. The cop and I then got into a childish back and forth before finally I was brought to the station. I maintained my right to remain silent once at the station, called a lawyer from the telephone book, and was then transported to another area. As it was winter, I was wearing a winter jacket. I took my jacket off and stuck the sleeve through the top of the door and then around the corner of the door, tied both arms together to make as effective of a noose as possible because I was tapping out. I didn't belong there. Obviously, this got caught on camera, and my cell was rushed by officers who used what I believe to be excessive force by slamming me neck first into the bench behind me, not only causing me to hit my head really hard, but also could have obliterated my neck. Luckily for me, I guess I've been drinking my milk. I was held overnight for my court appearance in the AM and got a $1,000 no cash bond, meaning I don't pay it unless I mess up again. I was then under the impression I'd be good to go home soon. Nope. Apparently, after I left, the judge didn't realize I violated a restraining order and sent me to jail for 4 of the longest days of my life, in a suicide blanket, locked up. I did nothing wrong. My 4 days in jail could be a whole other post. But anyway, I got out. I went down the straight and narrow and kept my nose clean, and that's when Stacy contacted me. St. Patty's Day. She got drunk, called me, offered to Uber to see me, and she did. It was a dumb call on my end. But I just missed her and loved her so much at the time. She came over at like 5 a.m. and she immediately said, "Let's just pretend it's like old times." And we did for 2 days when she stayed with me. She told the police what she did because she just wanted a break and didn't think they'd take it this seriously. When it was time for her to go, she said, "Call me later, love you." And I left back home. A couple of hours later, I got a knock on my door from the police again. Apparently, she ratted herself out to the police, prompting a warning. It was clear to me she was as good for me as Flint water, and that was the last time we spoke. At my first court appearance a week or 2 later, I was tapped on the shoulder by a detective and asked to speak with me outside. He identified himself and told me he's working with Stacy and that I should be hearing from him soon, knows we've seen, spoken with each other, and he expects more charges. He called me a couple of days later and scheduled a day for an interview. My lawyer told me he would likely be arresting me for something else, but I had no idea what. But he told me to keep my composure, and most importantly, shut up. I went for the interview, and you guessed it. I was immediately placed under arrest. I wasn't handcuffed or anything, but that's when he told me I'm being placed under arrest for SA and another assault. Contrary to my lawyer's advice, I lost it on the cop and told him the story and facts, again offered to show him texts, screenshots, etc. He didn't care. When he alluded to the second assault charge, I kept my mouth shut as I had no idea what he was talking about. He kept trying to pry at me, and finally he asked, "Did you throw yogurt at her?" I laughed and said, "Okay, I think I'm done answering questions, and I will wait for disclosure from my lawyer." The cop got curt and ended the interview, and I was free to go. I then had to sit and wait for a 1.5 years for my court date. In that time, Stacy took to social media to cancel me, claiming I'm a violent person with violent tendencies, or something to that effect, posting photos of me along with my full name, and left me a loner for the last 8 months, because everyone I know hates me over her social media post, which garnered a lot of attention because I had a lot of friends, especially in the local music scene and hospitality industry. I became withdrawn from society, but thankfully, I acquired a girlfriend prior to the grand cancellation, whom I'm still with, and she supported me through it all as best she could. Unfortunately, the idea of hitting Stacy with a cease and desist didn't happen until the post was already screen capped and shared among other people. She complied, but it had gotten out of control by the time I got my lawyer on it. I was being publicly shamed because someone got yogurt on their jacket in an unfavorable situation for both parties. I almost died, and she got to go be with her ex over it. Seems fair. About a month ago, my lawyer gave me 2 options: go to trial, $20,000, including the fees I've already paid him, or plead guilty to 1 count of assault, the yogurt incident. It took me a few days, but I decided to opt for the latter only because I know our justice system is flawed, and fighting all charges versus taking the hit on one and getting it discharged from my record after 2 years is a much safer bet. So I did exactly that. Unfortunately, I have to report to a probation officer once a month now, but other than that, I am finally free of her and the pain she has caused me. This week, I've decided I'm going to be happy. I bought lots of music recording equipment, some games I've been dying to play. I don't know if I should publicly address my friends on my currently deactivated social media accounts, explaining my side of the story. I went to the grocery store without a face mask, tattoos out, and hatless, and it felt liberating, like I was finally back in control of my life. And this, my friends, is why you never get involved in complicated situations. Thanks for reading if you did.